All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. As you know, I tend to be blunt on occasion. And, I wish that the rock media would just cover Ted Nugent the way they really want to cover Ted Nugent. In other words, put out opinion pieces every day that say, we don't like Ted Nugent. And here's why we don't like Ted Nugent. Now, Ted goes out and does an interview, and almost every single week, I do some research. Occasionally, I'm looking for stories. And on my feed all the time, Ted Nugent makes another baseless claim. Ted Nugent debunked. We've debunked Ted Nugent, even though we don't provide you with the actual debunking. Think about it, okay? When you say to Ted Nugent, when he's talking about whatever topic, that it's a baseless accusation, Ted Nugent makes baseless claim about blah, 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 right? So where is the actual proof that the claim that Nugent is making, or anybody for that matter, is baseless? I've wondered now for the past couple of years. And then, of course, there are these organizations that do so-called fact-checking, according to them. And typically these people are being funded by somebody who has an agenda to basically discredit the person making a claim. And we're losing a handle on truth. Now, the reason I said at the beginning of this is that the rock media should just say, hey, look, we don't like Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent can talk about, his endeavors as far as his new album that might be coming out, or his tour that he might be doing, or why he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, all of which kind of ties back into the media's coverage of this guy. Here's the deal, and I've said this already a few times. You may not like Ted Nugent as a person. You may not like what Ted Nugent says. You may not even like what Ted Nugent had for lunch, which I know there are a lot of people that don't. They're out there eating delicious Impossible burgers as we speak. I get it. But here's the deal. Ted Nugent is a great guitar player. He's definitely in my top 20, could be in my top 10. If you like the 60s music that he created, this raw psychedelic sound that he came up with in the 70s, he expanded that to include a lot of funk and blues and just all kinds of things that Ted Nugent brought to the table. In the 80s, he became the 80s as the 80s basically made him become more, I would say, polished or whatever. Even into the 90s with the damn Yankees, Ted Nugent was able to adapt because he's that good. All right. He's that good of a player. And it's perplexing to me that every article I read about Ted Nugent has to do with a political issue or a medical issue in some cases, and stuff that's related to what's gone on the past year and a half or so. It's sad to me because Nugent does a lot of good charitable things. He had this kids camp. I don't know if he's still doing it. Started back in 1989, kind of like the Make-A-Wish Foundation, where kids would go there and they'd get to do something really crazy good, like something that a kid wouldn't ordinarily get to do. And Nugent obviously has been very charitable toward veterans returning home with serious issues. In fact, I know he used to at least take part in a charity that would provide mortgage-free housing for veterans who were either homeless or displaced or unable to work. Ted Nugent is a guy who gives back to the community. But because it's not the kind of giving back, or it doesn't fall into the right category, or Ted's not saying the right things about, our chief medical officer in the country or something, I won't even call him that, but you know what I'm talking about, right? Right? So Ted's not on the page with all the other rock stars who are like the lemmings going over the cliff. They believe all the same thing. And if you step out of line, you get out of that narrative, somehow you're just, you're public enemy number one. No matter how much talent you have, no matter how many good things you've done for society, where there are a lot of people that do the critiquing and they don't give a rat's rear end about the things that are truly important in life. They just care about tearing someone down. And in the case of Nugent, who's an easy target, they make him into a cartoon character every day. Well, good. I like cartoons. I like to watch cartoons. I like people that have personality. I like people who have firm beliefs, even beliefs like Roger Waters, for instance, pretty much on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? Compared to Ted Nugent. I like the fact that Roger Waters is kind of outspoken. When I first started doing this channel, I was a little annoyed at Waters because he makes everything into a political thing, right? Everything. But as time has gone on, I've seen the value in what he says, even though I may not agree with what he says. But see, this is the old thing, the old days, okay? The good old days, when you could have people with competing or different political views and just different views on life in general, coexisting in the same space, and nobody wanting to just write negative things. Now, I don't see the rock media, by the way, writing negative things about Roger Waters. Never. It's usually very positive, other than the fact that Waters and David Gilmour aren't getting along all that well these days, which at least has to do with the legacy of Pink Floyd and the music. So that to me is a little bit more on point than constantly going after Ted Nugent and going, like, driving your car off the ditch, getting into the ditch rather, and finding the story and bringing it back. Stay on the highway, stay on the lane that you're supposed to be in. All right. I expect like Fox News and MSNBC and all these other outlets to cover the political end of things. When I'm looking for stuff to cover here on this channel, it's nice to be able to find actual music content to relay or to comment on or to have an opinion on, which that's what I do here. Okay. I observe and then I make comments. Sometimes I'm just telling you what happened, like a journalist would do, which is really scary because that just shows you how bad journalism is, that I have to be the guy that brings you that information. But usually I add my commentary and spin to it to make it a little bit more like just commentary, like Dave has commentary about such and such. By the way, I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. Patreon for $1 a month, folks. If you can afford to do $1 right now, the summer months, people tend to have other priorities. I get that. Things aren't going all that well out there. I totally get that, and I'm into that. That's why I'm looking for $1 a month. That's one of the reasons why I ask. But I appreciate everybody who's here, all the new subscribers. And again, thanks, and I will talk to you very soon.